Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this young lady back. It's Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, also now at the Heritage Foundation. She's got a bunch of other titles. The bottom line is she's awesome. Victoria, good to see you. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So what is this whole, go ahead and use the rockets. Did we somehow give authorization for Ukraine to use missiles in its war with Russia? Did that really just happen?
Yeah, so the big change here for your audience is these are these long-range missiles, HIMARS and ATACMS, that can go more than 100 miles into Russia. And the Biden administration had up until now restricted Ukrainian use on those to not allow them to use them on Russian soil. So I think what we've seen now, though, with the move of the 12,000 North Korean troops into Russia to support them as they try to retake the Kursk region, that apparently really influenced President Biden's thinking, and he decided that he wanted to actually authorize this now in the waning weeks of his administration. And I think the real problem here is, Putin has said he will consider this a significant escalation, at which point, his successor, President Trump, will have to bear the burden or the repercussions of this decision, which doesn't seem quite fair to either President Trump or the American people.
It is Victoria Coates. Go follow her over on X. As I'm watching this unfold, you had Antony Blinken, who for some reason doesn't have an H in his name, but it's Antony Blinken. He decided to go in front of a camera and say, we just sent out $8 billion in September. We sent another $500 million last week or 2 weeks ago, and we're going to send every dollar we possibly can to Ukraine before January 20th. What?
No, this is the $60 billion that was in the most recent emergency supplemental, which was to last the entire fiscal year, which means through September. So this was supposed to be all the funding that Ukraine would get for the next 9 months. And instead, Blinken has said that he's trying to, again, tie the hands of his successor by pushing all this money out the door willy-nilly. And, even if you support aid to Ukraine, that kind of influx of cash into what we have to say it is one of the world's most corrupt countries, and it's just kind of going to be sloshing around, is just the recipe for abuse of that. It's a wildly irresponsible thing to do. The money was already programmed. It would have been very difficult for the incoming Trump administration to deprogram it. Right. But instead of letting things happen in normal, orderly fashion, they're really putting tens of billions of dollars of taxpayer money at risk.
It is Victoria Coates. If you don't mind, can we talk a little bit about the North Korea-Russia arrangement? Many people think that North Korea and that family was put in place by China. It was actually put in place by the Soviet Union. So that relationship is a very long-standing one, isn't it?
It is, and it gets into the kind of very deep collaboration that we're now seeing amongst America's enemies. I actually call them CRINC, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, which is a suitably clownish kind of acronym for them.
Right.
But, yes, they were put in place by the Soviet Union. That's where a lot of their arms and technical knowledge have come from. But in recent decades, since the fall of the Soviet Union, they've become a wholly owned subsidiary of China. They cease to exist if China stops letting them have access to their financial system and to trade with China.
And food, right? They need food, too. Yeah.
They literally starve to death.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on you, but the whole China controlling it, so Russia had to go to China and say, hey, why don't you throw in 12,000 troops from North Korea?
Yeah, none of this happens without Chinese approval on some level. And so we also are seeing, Joe, Russian missiles and intelligence flow to the Houthi in Yemen, who are Iranian proxies, because they're part of this nasty little consortium as well. And so, this collusion between America's enemies, I think, is a deeply dangerous new fallout from the 4 years of failed Biden-Harris national security, which President Trump is going to have to set to rights.
She's the Vice President of National Security and Foreign Policy at Heritage. Go to heritage.org. It's Victoria Coates. What is the goal for all these? We call them bad actors. They probably think we're bad actors. What's the goal? World domination? Russia wants to control the world. China wants to control the world. Is there something that can happen if you could press a button to make it all settle down? What is that? What is that button?
Unfortunately, I don't think that button exists, although there really is no substitute for strong, decisive U.S. leadership. That's the critical thing here, that we need an American president who can inspire American allies to stand together, to stand with us, and to offer an alternative. The nice thing about, communist China is nobody wants to go live there.
Right.
Nobody particularly wants to partner with them. It's if you're a pariah state like Iran or Russia or North Korea, you don't have any other options. Or if the United States is weak and isn't providing an alternative. So, I think this is a situation that President Trump can put to rights. It's just unfortunate that it was allowed to develop over the last 4 years.
It is Victoria Coates. One last thing on that. Trump kept it calm for 4 years, and he did so because he showed Abdul a picture of his house, because he told Putin, you better not, or else something bad's going to happen. He dropped 56 missiles on Syria while having tea with Xi from China. He showed, I'll do it. And I think they were afraid that he would do it. I mean, the bad actors really did calm down. They know that he's coming in, and a couple of things appear to be happening. And tell me if I have this right. The outgoing Biden administration wants to make it as bad and as tough as they can on Trump, because they're not going to solve the war in Ukraine by sending billions more or saying go ahead and use missiles. They probably hope that he uses missiles, because then it'll really be, oh, look, Trump's coming in. Look how he ruined everything. That's the one side of it. The other side of it is, are these people going to do all they can, the Iranians, the Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Boko Haram, whoever the hell it is around the globe, are they now going to do everything they possibly can to wreak havoc until January 20th, knowing he'll come in and clean house? What is your prognostication for the next 3-4 weeks?
No, it is a very worrisome period, because it's not clear at all who's making the decisions in the Biden administration. Who is in charge, who has the nuclear codes. It doesn't appear to be the current president of the United States, although he has the authorities. So that is all very, very dangerous. But my hope is that especially the capabilities and decisiveness of Israel over the course really of the last 3 months, 2-3 months since the prime minister visited the United States, that has been enough to tell the bad actors that this is not the moment. Israel's demonstrated capabilities the Iranians had no idea they had, ability to reach out and touch people everywhere from Beirut to Tehran.
Right.
They've apparently taken a strong action against their nuclear program, which was not well understood after their October 26th strike. So my hope is that Israel has restored deterrence, and that when President Trump gets back in, that will be the region that he's being handed. But you're absolutely right to be deeply worried about these 60 days.
Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor under President Trump. Let's talk about Afghanistan for a second, if we can. The way we left was disgusting. Killed 13 military members for no reason. Taking the military out first was just dumb. I've had Trump on since. He said that was never the plan. We're going to take the military out last. Can we get Bagram back? And the reason I ask is that Iran is 400 miles away. So is China. I mean, it was the smartest thing that we had in the region, was having that air base. Can we get it back?
The short answer is I don't know. Giving up Bagram was really the unforgivable sin of all of this. General Milley for example, has testified that he recommended leaving 2,500 troops in Bagram, which could have secured it, and the intelligence capabilities that it provides. I don't know if I believe that. I think General Milley could have resigned if he had actually given that advice and it had been ignored, but he didn't do that. He waited till after he was out of office. But I think that was probably right. And certainly President Trump understood the value of those capabilities. What it would take to get it back now, I'm not sure. I don't know how entrenched the Taliban are there. There's also there are reports that China has taken over its management. So I'm not sure we can. But boy, if we could, it would be certainly something I would strongly recommend.
Yeah, I think that would be great. How does the war in Ukraine end? Is it as simple as going to what would have happened in Istanbul, or maybe going back to Minsk? What do you do to solve that? The people in the region that Russia is attacking are Russian ethnically. They speak Russian. Maybe you let them vote if they want to be part of Russia or part of Ukraine, or giving up any land is somehow a defeat.
Yeah, I think this is all what will need to be negotiated. And I think what I understand from the president-elect is that what he wants to do is get to those negotiations with leverage over both parties. And that should not be impossible to develop, especially if you're willing to put on some much more crushing economic sanctions on Russia, the sorts of things that'll get China's attention, because that's who's ultimately going to be able to to tell the Russians it's time to wind this up.
Right.
It's starting to stink. It's causing us more problems than it's causing the Americans, and it's not worth it. So I think that's going to be where he's going to try to get us as quickly as possible. So he has leverage over everyone.
It's Victoria Coates. When Israel is hearing the word ceasefire or the word ceasefire, they think that means give up, surrender. You're just going to stop shooting now. Nobody wins the war. Is there a path to victory for Israel over Hamas? I know that they've killed tens of thousands of Hamas. Then they've got Hezbollah coming at them and everybody else. Is there a way they can say, we won this war, don't try it again?
No, I think that you've actually really put your finger on it. This is what we need. We need an Israeli victory. They won 50 years ago, Joe, so it's not exactly breaking news. But to send that memo to Hamas, to Hezbollah, but ultimately to Iran, that this is over and you have lost. And we are not going to allow you to continue to do this. That is going to take a strong statement out of the United States. And so, that is a question, for the future administration, if they're willing to take that momentous step and saying, Israel has won this war. We are not negotiating a ceasefire. We're issuing terms now, and these are the terms. And I think, President Trump wanted to be a friend to the Palestinians in his first term. I don't know that these terms would be as draconian as they seem to fear. I think he would want to get to peace, but it has to be with an Israeli victory.
They have to be able to claim that. Is it a matter of us now saying, no more restrictions, do what you have to do?
It's something along those lines. And we are already feeling pressure from partners and allies, particularly in NATO, restricting our ability to, say, dock our warships in Spain, for example, because they don't approve of what we're doing for Israel. And I think that needs to be, exposed for the intolerable behavior that it is. And, we have to stop doing things like the State Department is doing as we speak, Joe, and sanctioning Israeli entities to try to make it a balanced issue with Hamas. There's just no equivalency.
Well, there's no. Why do you want to balance with terrorists? I'll never listen. You and I think, are too logical and reasonable to understand this thought process. It's Victoria Coates. Go and follow her everywhere. When it comes to the cabinet that he's picking, let's start with Secretary of State. We know that, from my opinion, I'm not asking you. I don't put words in your mouth, but Blinken is an idiot. The guy has been a complete mess. He's a globalist. He's part of the cabal. Now you've got Marco Rubio. How do we see a change there? Because he's strong on China. He's strong against Marxism. He's strong against communism.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Marco is like my old boss, Ted Cruz, your friend, a child of Cuban immigrants, and he understands all too well that communism kills. And he will be the first Secretary of State to be both sanctioned by and barred from entering China. So there's your big difference with Secretary Blinken right there. He's not going to be going and playing guitar or going to record stores in Beijing. And that's what I think he would want to, but or eating
that's pretty good.
Mushrooms.
For those who haven't seen it, I mean, there's famous videos of this guy Blinken grabbing the guitar, just playing with a band while the whole world is melting. But so Rubio makes sense, because a lot of people said, wait a second, he's a senator from Florida. I don't get it. But here's a guy who does really, I mean, he's been very hawkish about stopping communism, Marxism, globalism. I think it's a smart move.
No, it is. And he's been on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for more than 10 years. He's been on the Intelligence Committee. So this is somebody with a lot of experience, very well known to leadership around the world. In a way, maybe more of an establishment pick than some of President Trump's other picks. But I think that's very much the way he likes it. He likes to get a range of views and then is fully capable of making his own decisions.
So Fox Weekend host, because that's all he's ever done, according to Whoopi Goldberg, Pete Hegseth, has been touted to be the defense secretary. Here's a guy, 20 years, of course, in the military, in foxholes, in combat, in the infantry. He's a major. Here's a guy that went to Harvard. I mean, he's got a whole lot of background that they're trying to act like he doesn't have. What do you think about that pick? The one thing that I hear from people, even on our side, is, well, he's a little young. Does youth matter in this position or not?
I think youth is a great bonus. And while we're talking about my old bosses, he is older than my two bosses ago, Don Rumsfeld, who was 43 when he became Secretary of Defense in 1976. And Pete is 44. So I think for the reasons you point out, that he's a decorated combat veteran, 2 Bronze Stars. He has spent a great deal of time dedicating his life to promoting and protecting our veterans. I can think of a lot of worse things for a Secretary of Defense to do. Yeah. And then on top of that, he's thought very deeply about military culture. And I think I would really strongly recommend his recent book, The War on Warriors, all about how the American military culture, in a way, has turned on itself. And we have a recruiting crisis. We don't have
Yes.
enough people in our armed forces. We also desperately need to modernize. And yet our military only seems to want to talk about wokeness and social programs and
Yes.
DEI and transgender, whatever. And so I think he is the perfect person to lead this, and I think will be a real breath of fresh air in the Pentagon.
I could talk to you for 6 hours, but I've got one. Let's just talk about one more guy. I just had him on a week and a half ago. It's so funny. And I'm not bragging, but these people have all been on my show a million. I've got all their cell phone numbers. I'm like, the whole administration, I could just cell phone. It's an odd place because 4 years under Biden, not one peep from the White House. We couldn't get anywhere near anybody who worked in this administration. Now I feel like America is going to have access again. Let's talk about Mike Waltz. What is the first priority of an incoming national security advisor?
Now, it's a critical role, and Congressman Waltz is a terrific choice as well, a Green Beret who served with great distinction in Afghanistan and Iraq, now has been serving in Congress. And I think, he's very well known to the president. They know each other from Florida, among other things. And this is a very personal relationship. The National Security Council is the president's mechanism to impose his policies on the departments and agencies. It's staffed both by his political appointees, but also by detailees from those departments. And so picking the careers, and the good news for your audience is there are some out there who do support President Trump, who do want to come and serve for him. We didn't know this in the first administration. We didn't know who to go pick, but we can get those people in now who will be responsive to the president, to his agenda, and help his cabinet secretaries impose his policies on the massive, bloated swamp that is the federal government.
I maybe have 30 seconds, Victoria, at least Stefanik. Is the UN ambassador that important? What does she bring?
It is. And I think what attracted the president to her nomination was the testimony of the three college presidents on anti-Semitism last fall, or the fall of 23 rather, and that this was a critical moment for recognizing the problem of anti-Semitism, anti-Israel sentiment in the United States. This is an American problem, and I think we can trust Congresswoman Stefanik to expose that at the United Nations.
From heritage.org, she's the former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Trump. It's Victoria Coates. Victoria, thanks so much for the knowledge and the time. I really appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you, Joe.
All right, we're back after this. Stay right here.